Good evening and welcome to the Grand Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, May 29th. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada. Thank you to the National Film Board of Canada for the images of our country and to our very own Grand Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We'll move into our council meeting proper and we'll start with the adoption of the previous council meeting minutes. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll move the City Council meeting held May 15, 2007 be approved. A motion.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And then motion for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given.
Just make sure your microphone is a little bit closer there to you, Councillor O'Toole.
There we go.
Thank you.
Getting ready for end of the week, start of the week. I move that Council adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on the agenda? Again, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you, and that motion carries as well. That brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity for anyone in the community to come forward and address council on any community-related matter, as long as it's not the subject of a public hearing. And I know we have actually, we have no public hearings. We do have some unfinished business related to public hearings, but an opportunity for anybody in the community to come forward and address council on any community-related matter. We did have a couple of delegations that let us know in advance that they were planning on coming. And the first is with respect to a proclamation that we have to make today in support of cheerleaders. And so I see Mika de Groot is there. Mika, would you like to join us at the presenters table? And if you have anybody else in your delegation you'd like to call forward? Welcome, Mika. If you'd like to introduce yourself when you're set there at the table, and that microphone, I'm not sure who pointed it straight up, but point it towards your mouth. Bend it down and point it towards you. Yeah. Well, we want to be able to hear you. Welcome. If you'd just like to introduce yourself and your colleague.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Mika de Groot, and I'm with Spinal Cord Injury Alberta. And with me today are Cecil Pizzi. He's a director for Spinal Cord Injury Alberta, and Radcliffe is with us as well, and he is going to be our youth cheerleader this year. I'm here. I'm really excited that on May the 11th, the Honourable Member of Parliament, Carla Qualtrough, declared this very week as the National Accessibility Awareness Week. And today I'm asking for the reading of the proclamation for June 6 to be Cheerleaders Enabling Access Event Day. Leaders from Grand Prairie, the County of Grand Prairie, and other local communities are invited to be cheerleaders, people who use a wheelchair for the day at home, in the workplace, and at play. The event helps policy writers and decision makers to consider the value of barrier-free built environments for home, work, or play. These able-bodied individuals will experience some of the barriers persons with disabilities face on a day-to-day basis. Such awareness will help develop our communities to be fully inclusive, allow people to fully participate in the community, and reach their full potential while engaging in the unique experience. Your involvement as chairleaders will help shape Alberta's future in becoming a barrier-free province while making our communities more accessible to persons who use mobility aids. And this year we have 4 people from the city who are interested in being chairleaders, and they include Lara, Koji, Bob, and Robin. And you're invited to join us in a picture with the past chairleaders who are here. And maybe we can just pass on the t-shirt to our youth member so that it looks really cool on the website. So that's kind of what today is about. I'm available to answer questions later, and I would very much like it, Bill, if you could read that thing and with fewer mistakes than I've managed.
Well, I think you've done pretty well, and obviously many members of City Council are very familiar with the Cheerleaders event and have had an opportunity to participate in the past. And it just so happens, in support of your request tonight, I happen to have a proclamation here ready to go. Imagine that. And so I will make the proclamation for the Cheerleaders Enabling Access event. Whereas Spinal Cord Injury Alberta has provided service to people with spinal cord injuries and mobility impairments for over 50 years, and whereas the Spinal Cord Injury Alberta is a non-profit organization with the mission to empower persons with spinal cord injuries and other physical disabilities to achieve independence and full community participation, and whereas Spinal Cord Injury Alberta provides rehabilitation support, service coordination, peer support, community advocacy for the advancement of inclusiveness, and information services to people living with physical disabilities. And whereas Spinal Cord Injury Alberta hosts their 5th Grand Prairie Cheerleaders Enabling Access event to raise awareness and funds to support their work with individuals who face barriers to mobility, now therefore, I, Mayor Bill Given of the City of Grand Prairie, do hereby proclaim June 6, 2017 as Cheerleaders Enabling Access Event Day. And I would encourage everyone to participate and support this very worthwhile cause. And Mika and your entire team at Spinal Cord Injury Alberta, I know it's a huge team of volunteers that get together to put this on every year. You have a number of community supporters. Thank you so much for everything that you do. It's a pleasure to be able to make this proclamation in recognition of your event. Thank you. So I will, we have a couple of other delegations that let us know that they're coming today. I know that we have a number of people that are going to be participating in Cheerleaders this year, and I appreciate hearing that our city manager, Mr. Nicolay, is going to be one of those. He's been in the city for 6 months, 5 months, and is 4 months, and is ready to go, and so certainly appreciate that. We will hand on this proclamation to administration there so you can use it in your promotions, and we look forward to taking some pictures with you on the day.
Thank you.
We had another delegation that let us know in advance so that they wish to present, and that's Mrs. Hetland with respect to the West Industrial Area Structure Plan. Marissa, if you'd like to come forward, come up to the presenter's mic. If there's anybody else that's going to come forward with you, encourage them to come and have a seat. We'll just ask you to introduce whoever sits at the table with you, so we can know who's here. Make yourself welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Again, my name is Marisa Heitland, and tonight I have with me Ryan and Leah Middleton. Good evening, Mayor Given and respected members of council. What purpose could green space possibly serve within an industrial park? Industrial areas don't need interpretive centers. Industrial areas certainly wouldn't be a space to bring your baby to a splash park. So what good is municipal reserve taken as land in areas zoned as industrial? I asked the experts this very question, our own city planners. What I learned is that green space in an industrial park can be part of a holistic, progressive design that would enhance our city, adding accessibility and aesthetics. I learned that an area structure plan is part of a bigger working mechanism that is the living body of the city. As part of a whole, an industrial park has arteries of water lines and various types of roads that line up with other parts of the city. As well, there are certain industrial areas that border residential space. Industrial parks that incorporate zero or little green space are grim and hard to access by bicycle or on foot, and are at a much higher risk at becoming future brownfields. Sorry, wrong one. I apologize, I only have a black and white printer. A great use of green space in industrial areas, a precedent set in Edmonton and other areas, such as the Lambton and Maple Ridge industrial parks, where they have set up sports fields. Benefits of sports fields within industrial parks are beneficial in the following ways: time and usage. These are just Google Maps of different sports fields in Edmonton. Crime reduction. With groups using these green spaces, there are extra sets of eyes. It's a huge deterrent for vandals and criminals alike. Time and usage. Sports groups run on evenings and weekends when businesses are closed. This maximizes utilization of the space for all parties. Parking. Parking around existing residential and public facilities with sports fields is a real problem. In industrial parks, however, it is a little different, as parking for businesses generally are contained within the lot itself. I have a quote here from Your Grace's recent State of City address. One of the most important jobs of council is to look forward and set the direction for the community. Tonight you have the opportunity to do just that. The residents of the west side of Grande Prairie, along with those in proximity of the West Industrial ASP, whom, to no fault of their own, find themselves potentially being surrounded on all sides by industrial park, are counting on you to do right by them. Future residents, 10, 20, 100 years from now, are now counting on you to do the right thing. The recent Grande Prairie Area Joint Recreation Master Plan, and I quote, "Local municipalities will deliver healthy environments as a core public good to support active, healthy citizens and communities within the Grande Prairie area." Residents of Grande Prairie need more sports fields. There's a real need specifically on the West End. Tonight I ask that when you vote, that the MR needs to be taken as land. It needs to be taken as a full 10%. And at the very least, due to the fact that many members of the area were not privy to the process, that it be tabled. In conclusion, please consider the opportunity to take 10% of this in future industrial developments as land. Our city planners are competent and capable. They will do amazing things with this MR and leave a legacy and set a standard for the city in the future. Thank you. Now my friend Ryan has a couple of things he would like to add.
Welcome, Mr. Middleton.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I've lived in Silver Point for my whole life, and I want more place to play.
Thanks very much for coming tonight, Ryan. Thank you. Was there anything else that's happened?
No, thank you.
Okay. We do have an opportunity for questions. Some council members may have questions for you. I see Councillor McLean is in the queue. Councillor McLean?
Mayor Given, Mayor, can you bring up, there was a display you had on the West Industrial area, and it showed a color. It was one of the first ones you put on there. It was a map. No, that's not it. It had a map, and it showed an outline of what area would be covered if you did take 10%, or how it worked.
Oh, sorry. This is just the Silver Point.
Oh, that's Silver Point.
Yeah, and that's the West Industrial Structure Plan.
Okay, so the question I have is, if something was to happen, and Silver Point I know is in the county, but doesn't matter, it's right on our borders. Did you guys know that right now the city is looking at 1.5 or 9 acres instead of getting 29 acres if
Right.
you went for the land? You know that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the delegation? Councillor Tarrant. Thank you, Mayor Given.
Thanks, Marissa, for the presentation. Just wondering, what do you envision if the city were to take more MR in this land? Do you have an idea of what it should be, or what do you think is missing in the area that should necessitate having MR here?
Yes, well, I did speak with the GP Sports Council, and I was told that there was a need for more sports fields on the west end of Grand Prairie, so I think it would definitely be beneficial, maybe not in the immediate future, but certainly, within the next 10 or so years for sure, as the area does infill, and also there's a projected, I believe, more residential kind of space in future to the south as well. So I'm just thinking like sort of a visionary sort of idea where, it looks just like an empty field right now, but it'll look like a mostly solid industrial park when it's developed, if it goes ahead as proposed. So
thank you. Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. I don't see anybody else in the queue with any questions. Ladies, sir, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you.
thank you.
I think that handles all of our delegations that had let us know in advance that they wish to present to council. Was there anybody else that was here tonight that wished to present to council that hadn't let us know in advance? I see one presenter coming forward. We've got lots of time. We'll make sure that we've got everybody. So if you just care to introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Given, Council. I've been here before, Scott Rossler with Helix Engineering. Unfortunately, the developer of the airport area structure plan was unable to attend tonight, as he did not realize he had an opportunity to speak at the council meeting. Just to cover off a couple of the concerns that were raised by the previous delegation. As far as process goes within this area structure plan and the things that have occurred up till now, I really appreciate the concerns of residents adjacent to the property and to the planned area. This is an area structure plan that's been in circulation for might be just over 4 years now. So we've had 2 open houses. We previously, 2 weeks ago, had a public hearing. There has been public consultation with individual meetings with the management of Silver Point on 3 separate occasions. So we've had several conversations with them in regards to what is being provided and the plan and buffers, whatnot, things like that. So so we have had a fair amount of conversation throughout that process. We've had, I would say, approximately 6 residents of Silver Point show up, look at the plan, understand what it's about, and able to voice their opinions, and all have resigned to the fact that they're quite happy with the plan. So we have kept safety in the forefront on the plan as far as what is available for buffers to deal with the fact that there's an industrial park next to a residential neighborhood, keeping in mind, of course, that Silver Point came after the industrial park, so we were in a situation where we had an industrial zoned land, not zoned, but industrial dedicated land prior to the residential coming along. So the MR that is provided within, recognizing that it is significantly under the 32 acres of land that would typically be acquired in a residential neighborhood, we have looked at that, and with no needs coming forward through schools, through anything of that sort, there has been, I would say, extensive discussions with city planners and parks departments and whatnot to get to this stage where we've dedicated the amount of MR that we have. Unfortunately, due to the process on this, there's the opportunity to deal with this through public hearing, second reading, first reading, preferably for us would have been earlier at this stage. At the end of the day, a no vote today means this industrial development goes away and would be tabled for, I believe, 6 months. Not 100% sure on that, but I believe it's 6 months it has to sit before another application can come forward. So so essentially, a no vote today would push the industrial park to replan. Now, and currently they are planning for their first phase of development potentially as early as this fall. So there would be a significant amount of inconvenience to that. A few of the reasons that just to kind of put aside the concerns with development and the developers that do make these decisions, they aren't made lightly. It's something that is, as I said, discussed at length with planners and councillors and whatnot prior to going into these plans. There is a lot of discussion. We've had, like I said, 3 meetings with the resident neighborhood adjacent with very little concern. So the alternative is that this land gets paid for by the developer. So there's a dedication back to the city to essentially purchase that MR land back, and then it comes on as industrial land rather than municipal reserve. So the 29 acres that exists would goes back into the tax base rather than coming out and becoming MR that is maintained by the city. So unfortunately, due to the process, we would be very concerned with a vote against that plan. But recognizing the concerns, I do hear them, but I do also feel like the developer did a pretty good job of informing the public and letting them know as to what the plans were and getting, honestly, a general acceptance. We didn't get a written statement, but I've had several calls from Silver Point expressing their consent on the plans. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Scott, you were saying that Silver Point came after the industrial land, after the area plan. Please speak to that, because I know Silver Point's been there for quite a while.
Yeah, so within the intermunicipal development plan and the municipal development plan for the city of Grand Prairie, I don't know the exact year, but I believe early 2000s, we worked on the plan for Silver Point to redesignate that land as residential. So prior to that, it was industrial. So the entire pocket was industrial. That developer came forward, asked for designation to mobile home community. So essentially, these concerns were all brought up at that point. Obviously, at that time, there's no residents living there. So the park came after the designation of industrial.
So my final question, so when this all happened 17 years ago, it was in county land, and we know how some county developments happen with industrial around residential. So it was a different look. It wasn't a real urban look. I know you're saying that they took a part out and made a trailer court or an area of land for people to live, but what kind of thought was put in for parks and recreation in that area, besides building industrial right around when it was in county? So my question is, the county looks at it differently than a city or a town. Am I correct?
No, I recognize that. Under the Municipal Government Act, they're also within a development, so within a condo development, which is what Silver Point would be. They are also required to provide 10% green space within their development, being that it's, and most of them are like that. So the city and county both have that. That's a standard across both municipalities, that there's a required dedication above and beyond, the same as you would with commercial or industrial. There's a percentage dedication of land based on the gross subdivided area. So essentially, with a large block of land, I mean, most of the time, a lot of the mobile home communities are up to quarter sections or larger. And because they're one lot condos, they're expected under their condo association to handle their own park space within the development. And it's come back as a 10% dedication.
Okay, so Silver Point has 10% as is right now of the land base with all the trailer courts. There's 10% MR in Silver Point, or did the county council at the time take any cash in lieu?
I actually can't speak to that. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Osler, I had 2 questions. For the MR that is going to exist, can you speak to where it is in the plan, or how it's, like, there is some land that the city's taking, how is it aligned?
Yeah, so obviously with any, aside from the land that should or does exist within Silver Point, all of the municipal reserve and there's not an extensive amount of it, but the municipal reserve that does exist within the airport area structure plan or airport industrial is directly adjacent to the southern boundary. So it is all the trails are adjacent to Silver Point. One of the storm ponds is directly adjacent to that as well. So as indicated at the public hearing, that land where the storm pond it's a dry pond, so it will be a fully grassed area. It's approximately 12 acres in size, I would say. So those, in many cases, I mean, they're used by the public, not generally by organized sports groups and whatnot, but they are used quite regularly. Royal Oaks Storm Pond, for example, areas like that. Also, a little more directly to the southeast of this, within what's not in front of council yet, but within the Kensington area structure plan, there also is a proposed mobile home community with when we circulated that plan, there was a decline from any of the schools to proceed in that area. So there's actually a 12-acre regional park plan for that area as well, which would be less, 600 meters-ish, I would say, away. So not directly adjacent to Silver Point, but 1/4 over. So that tends to be what happens if we're going to develop a regional park. We would do it in the center of the residential rather than further away. So.
And then I see Councillor Terrence in the queue as well. I just had one other question around, so the amount of land that the city is not taking in terms of MR, I believe we take, there's a cash valuation that's placed on that, and I don't know whether you have that approximate valuation now to give some sense of what that trade-off is, I guess.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor. I don't have the evaluation. Typical evaluations recently have come in the typical raw land value, so around the $50,000 an acre. The real net benefit is the fact that it becomes taxable land. So on a quarter section, it's usually around $1 million. So that's per quarter. So it'd be $2 million in this development.
Okay. So roughly speaking.
Yeah, roughly, very roughly. It goes through a public assessment to get to that point.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you. Scott, you had mentioned this Kensington Regional Park. I don't know if you can speak to this, but in terms of linkages to the park from this development, do you know if that's in the works, if that's planned?
I believe, and I don't know if there's any way we can get a plan up there. I'm not sure how close together they are. I believe there's a chunk of land between them that's missing. There are a lot of arterial and local road networks in the area, so being that one's in the city, one's in the county, sometimes the two municipalities don't align perfectly. But
if it's a help, Mr. Osler, I think administration can put up a map of the area for you to describe, so for the rest of us actually probably to video this. Go ahead, Mr. Osler.
There we go. So right where the cursor is, so directly south of that, that's where the park would be. So they are separated by a quarter section. So that so where Silver Point is, right there, the quarter to the east is Cowan Industrial, which I don't know what their dedication is. To the east of that is within city boundary now. That quarter section does not have any planning completed on it. And east of that is also industrial. So the first residential piece away from Silver Point and within the city would be south of the tracks. So the basically where the scale bar is roughly where that park would be.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Any other questions to the delegation? Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, actually, could you just leave that back up there? So thank you very much, Mayor Given. The green area up there in the western area industrial, that area there is what we're talking about today, right now?
So that current area, that's a storm pond. So that's the area that I'm talking about that would be a dry pond that would exist as a grassed area. So that's approximately 12 acres, somewhere in that range. There's also two on the western quarter. That's a pond. Those are both ponds. The north one's actually going to end up a little bit wet. It's currently a dugout, so we're going to expand the capacity of it, but the the water that because it exists today, we're not going to drain it on behalf of the airport. So the only reason they're dry is just due to the proximity of the airport. So those 3 nodes will all be green space essentially, and then with that there will be a trail around the southern one, and that red dashed line is a trail connecting the western portion of the plan area to what is currently the Vision West area or outline plan.
And farther, I guess it would be east, is already developed, correct? This area in here?
Yeah, where that cursor is actually at Co-Electric. So right there. And then to the east of that, so there's a strip along the southern portions of that boundary as well, which is also a dry storm pond. So those will be grassed areas and green areas. And then proceeding east, and I mean, for the next section, you're still in Richmond Industrial, so it's to get to kind of a commercial-based area. If you wanted to walk along that property boundary, and then to the north on 116th Street, which would be connected with another asphalt trail, that would be the location. Well, that's the location of like Best Buy, Winners, that complex.
Thank you very much for the explanations.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Thanks to administration for being able to call up the map on short order. It's helpful. I don't see any other questions. Mr. Osler, thanks very much for being here this evening. Much appreciated. Okay, and I think we may have one other delegation, somebody else that wished to present to council. If you'd like to come forward. You've seen the drill a couple of times now, and you've been here before, so if you just introduce yourself for council and for the public that might be watching, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Renee Charbonneau. I'm here as a representative of the Army, Navy, Air Force Veterans Club. Excuse me. Little history as to what brings me to here today. We went through a lengthy process trying to find a home for this monument that our organization wanted to build. And we hit a number of roadblocks, a few of them that were rather expensive. We also had some miscommunications that I've subsequently learned about, where council wasn't kept informed on some of our requests and asks for help. So I thought after speaking with Councillor O'Toole, to take him up on the offer to come here tonight and present to you where we are with this program and what we're hoping to accomplish. After we found out that Veterans Park was not going to be viable because of engineering concerns, we went back to the drawing board as an organization and decided that this extremely, am I doing this properly? Other way?
Perfect,
right?
perfect.
This extremely unloved piece of land right here would be a perfect home for this monument and memorial gardens that would allow us as Anavets the opportunity to rework ourselves as an organization, to revitalize ourselves. And it's actually part of a business plan we're working on with Community Futures and Holly Sorgen to revitalize our club. So part of what we're going to do is put the monument right about here. And we've got a beautiful pad in. We've had a lot of support from the community. And we're going to start the memorial gardens next year. This year in October, the Loyal Edmonton Regiment is going to be bringing up a 25-piece pipe and drum band. The Grand Prairie Pipe and Drum Band is going to be playing, and we're inviting a number of dignitaries, including our city, of course, as well as all of our sponsors, to come to the unveiling of the monument. Now, the interesting thing about the monument that has come to light is that we found out we actually have a deeper connection to the PPCLI than we thought. Not only are we tied to the Loyal Edmonton Regiment through decoy armories and our Army cadets, but Master Corporal Timothy Wilson was born here in Grand Prairie, and he still has family that lives here in Grand Prairie, his Uncle Rod. And so at this ceremony, we are going to have 2 Silver Cross families. Master Corporal Arndt's wife is coming, and Master Corporal Timothy Wilson's brother, who is a sergeant in the same platoon that his brother had been in, to PPCLI Shiloh, Manitoba, is coming, as well as representatives from the PPCLI out of Calgary. And what I'm hoping for today is, because we've gotten so much support to get the Black Monument done, we had lost some pretty valuable time, which cost us our LAV unit and a $10,000 grant from Canadian Legacy as a result that we weren't taking possession of the LAV. So we've managed to pay for everything to where we are right now. We've almost got our monument paid for, and we're proceeding with the 4 waypoints, the memorial points on each corner of the pad for the fallen soldiers. All of that is going to be part of a huge unveiling, as I said, October 7th. We have enormous support from the Army and Air Cadets, and we are also looking that next year when we start the Memorial Gardens, we would like to approach all of the schools in the city of Grand Prairie and our county and invite them to help us choose the historical points of interest that should go in this memorial garden and start inviting the children. In speaking to so many people over sponsorships and fundraising, we learned a lot of people don't know of our history or the connection that we have to World War II or to our military. So we thought it would be a very interesting way is to engage the children of our community and thereby hopefully excite some of their parents. We have the opportunity through Veterans Affairs commemorative programs to apply yearly to have interactive communications with children where they will help us pay for the postage, the printing of all kinds of materials. They will actually help us engage and rent buses to bring kids in for field trips to help teach them, to get them to engage with our new veterans and some of our old that still live here. And we want to really make this interactive and help bring notice to Anavets as a clubhouse, to keep it vital, to keep it here for our veterans for years to come, and to be able to pass it on to future generations. So with that in mind, I'm hoping that the City of Grand Prairie would consider helping us with some of our expenses for our commemoration and unveiling dinner. We have 3 different options, or one really big one. The first option is we need 21 rooms for our dignitaries. At $133.69 is what the Quality Hotel has given us, and that includes breakfast. And that works out to $2,835. The 20 luncheons that we would need for the 36 luncheons that we would need would roughly run $720. And then, of course, the dinner for our dignitaries, performers, and sponsors, we would be asking for at $25 a plate. For 120 honored guests would be $3,000. And that would include the pipe and drum bands. That would include all of our dignitaries from RCMP, Fire, MLA, MPs, PPCLI, and that sort of thing. And I have some updated stuff, including the invitation mock-up that we're working on with the Loyal Edmonton Regiment, as well as the rough schedule. And then some other fundraising that we're doing on our own to start really pushing to bring notice to our clubhouse and start revitalizing this thing and really, take charge of what's going on with our future. So we're encouraging people to come out for a poker run that we're hosting this Saturday. Same as last year's poker run, only not as no parades or anything. However, we will have the memorials for the 4 soldiers ready, the actual panels, for everybody to be able to see the progress that we're making for the monument. And then we're going to be inviting people to come take advantage of our clubhouse for ride nights. Everybody's looking for a place to go with their hot rods or their rat rods or their motorcycles. And we have a clubhouse in desperate need of people to fill it. We're going to utilize those evenings when they're coming in to have a meal and a coffee before they head out for their cruise. We're going to be inviting them to become members of our club. We're being very proactive in our future and working very hard to turn that corner. And I want to thank you very much for your time tonight. And I have a parcel to leave with you.
And so the package you can hand when you're done, you can hand it over to administration there, either the legislative services manager or Mr. Ollinger. Okay. And we do have at least one councillor in the queue with some questions. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Renee, just a couple quick questions. At first, I was just you know, originally when I started hearing about a monument, but I was hearing about maybe a tank and a lab. And so what do you have right now? You lost any artifacts you might have from, say, the Afghanistan war or whichever. Is there something still coming? Because that really opened up my eyes when I started seeing some of that. Because in the city, where do we have any of that? So,
Well, we actually have the Loyal Edmonton Regiment is working with us to find an armored vehicle of some nature for us for next year. Right now, we've lost the LAV unit. That program, we had to have all of our paperwork in just 2 weeks after the deadline when I found out that Veterans Park wasn't going to work. And so we lost that because that program is over as of January 1, 2018. We are looking for a military vehicle of some sort to put in there. We really want one. We think that that would be kind of the thing that really, you know, helps make that shine a little bit more. But for now, we have the big black marble monument and the 4 memorial points of interest, one for each corner of the concrete pad where the monument sits.
so I got 2 to finish off. So what was the hope originally to have different artifacts or machines from the war, which I think is a positive thing for children to see?
Yes.
Freedom isn't free. Was there planning to have 3 or 4 at this? The hope, like, after it evolves over a couple of years?
What we'd like to do is we'd like to get an armored Jeep. We'd like to get an artillery gun and then some sort of other unit. But that is going to take us some time to acquire and accumulate. I've got people looking, but it's going to take a little bit of time.
So my last question, if you were going to ask, which you're asking for in October, there was 3 different numbers I heard. So would $10,000 ask be cover what you're asking?
It absolutely would, sir.
And what would just to say, and I need to know this, like if the ask was to come to the right committee and someone was to present it to go to the right committee, that would work out not to the Army Navy, it'd be the Afghanistan, like I don't know what.
It would go to the Army Navy Veterans Club, and it would be put in the Afghanistan Monument Fund. We have a separate bank account for that project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any other questions for the delegation? I don't see anybody else in the queue. Thanks very much for being here, Ms. Harbinell. Certainly appreciate it. Appreciate the update and hearing about the progress on the monument and the change in location. This delegation portion of our agenda exists at every regular city council meeting. We ensure that there's an opportunity for the community to come forward and raise issues with council. I think just about everybody that was in the room had an opportunity to come forward, and so I'll close the delegation portion of our agenda. We'll move on. We had no public hearings this evening. We do have a couple of items of unfinished business, starting with item 7.1, Bylaw 1329, which is the West Industrial Area Structure Plan, and Bylaw C 1322, Airport Industrial Outline Plan. We're looking for motions for 3rd reading, and we'll start first with the West Industrial Area Structure Plan. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council give 3rd reading to Bylaw C 1329, being the bylaw to adopt the West Industrial Area Structure Plan.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Radburn. That motion is open for discussion and debate. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm going to urge council to vote no on this 3rd reading. There's 3 main reasons I wrote down. Land is more valuable than the cash value at the present time. If you look over a longer period of time of 20, 40 years, what it could bring to a community. Since I've been a councillor for 6.5 years, what have we done for soccer fields, rugby, baseball in the west, east, and north side of the city? What kind of lands have we acquired? And 3rd, vision for the future needs to start now for the future. If you look at certain areas, when you bring a couple quarter sections together, we heard an individual up as a delegation talking, and if you join them and you have 30 acres here or 30 acres here and you join them, like over by the hospital, you might have 60 to have a major soccer fields or rugby. If you look to the north of the airport, if you bring 2 quarters together and combine them and maybe separate a couple acres out for trails and then put them together, what could you achieve? You could achieve a new area. Most that we put the money is in South Bear Park, which is very important. It's going to need a little bit more, but in 10 or 14 years, we're going to need 2 or 3 more major areas. And what has disappointed me enormously over council my first term, and the second is that we didn't have the land for a senior lodge that got built in Claremont. And now we have some land for lower income, for senior lodges, but we don't really have any land for recreational. We are really bad not having any land. So I urge council to defeat this, but if not, this won't be off the radar. This will be majorly on the radar. And just think back on your term, councillors that are new, what areas did we get in these areas of the city for recreational? What did we acquire? I bet you could look back and pretty well it'd be zero. So I hope you vote no to it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. A couple notes. First of all, I think it's really unfortunate just with Silver Point and the development there. It's easy to look back on history, but I don't think it should have ever been approved in that location in the first place. It's an industrial zone, and it's really unfortunate that took place. And I think that's cause for some concern in butting up. I think there's also worthy to note that this is one of the challenges with regionalization and just having a partner, a regional municipality that's right next to us. And it's unfortunate that we have to have this interplay. That there wasn't a joint planning process at the time, and even when there is a joint planning process, there's different objectives and they don't see eye to eye. So just wanted to make those notes. With that said, I will be supporting the motion. I think that the developers made some concessions, and certainly we've had discussions before on this. And we did ask for some MR, that we wanted to have that east-west trail connection. I think that was accommodated. The berm and the distance between the industrial and the residential was given, and so I think there was some give by the developer there, and I think that is appreciated. I think one of the bigger pictures is that the money that's generated from, as Mayor Given asked during the presentation, I think it's going to be a couple $1 million cash in lieu of the MMR, which gives us the ability to invest in other areas, in residential areas that have, whether it's sports fields or grandstands or different things like that, and it gives us that flexibility. There's also the ongoing industrial tax revenue that we get from those lands that will allow us to benefit other recreational areas that we may not get otherwise. So for those reasons, I think it's important that we support this as is. One final reason is that, I don't feel that throughout the process, there was any compelling reason for MR in this zone. I think that, we have a parks master plan, we have recreation master planning, and none of those, master plans identified this area as a need for having sports fields or having, place. And speaking to Councillor McLean's motion, I think we do have significant areas in the city where there is lots of MR. Certainly in any residential area, we do take the 10% full land, and so we do have lots of sites that will be developed in the future. And as we heard previously in the Kensington area, just right adjacent to this area, there is going to be significant a park being built there. And so I think that we are addressing the area, the needs of MR for the West area residents. And with that, I urge fellow councillors to support the motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Any other discussion or debate on the motion for third reading? I see Councillor McLean and Councillor Radburn. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just to finish off, Councillor Radburn got in there. I believe it's very important to start looking to the future. And to say that we have, if you take the $2 million and buy the land we bought to the east here, how many acres total is that? Add it up, it won't be the 27 acres, it'll be a lot more at the value. And to say that we have it all in the residential area, did we look into like how much land you need to acquire for soccer, baseball? Like, will that 10% do, like what I say, when you have two quarters side by side, which we're planning doing now, and if they were to join them, we would have opportunity to do that. But right now, we do not. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Radburn.
If I might close, Mayor Given.
I see Councillor Tarrant wanted to get in the queue as well, so it's absolutely, Councillor Radburn, you could close. Councillor Tarrant, did you have something that you want to follow up with? And then we'll go to Councillor Radburn to close.
To respond to Councillor McLean's comments there, I think that this is the reason why we have master plans in place, is to identify where those future sports fields are going to be, where the need is, where the community need is. And we just went through a whole joint recreation master plan that identifies all those future uses. And frankly, this did not come up. I have not seen one plan or one user group that said the Weston County or the West Industrial Park is where we need to have the next baseball fields. There's lots of other suggestions and lots of other areas that have been identified, and I would rather focus our money and time and land resources on those areas as opposed to something that does not seem to be a priority for a majority of the community.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Radburn to close it. Sorry, I double-clicked there. My mistake. Go ahead. If you just turn your microphone on.
Thank you very much. Just in closing, I will be supporting the motion, and I would encourage my colleagues to do so. For me, it's not about cash in lieu or land in industrial. It's about case by case looking at it. So I agree with the concept that we have to look at it each time we get these kinds of applications. So it shouldn't be either or. It has to be one or the other. Sometimes we do both, but sometimes for me it's location, and it's strategically. I think the money can be used to our advantage to ensure that those parks and fields are where we most need them in the city. So I think that that for me is probably the main. But I do really appreciate the presentations and pause for reflection. It's always good to have the perspective shared, so I thank you very much. It's just in this particular case, I think that we're best to do the way the bylaw has been written. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Radburn. So that was to close. I will call now for third reading of Bylaw C 1329. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We would move to third reading of Bylaw C 1322 to adopt the Airport Industrial Outline Plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council give third reading to Bylaw C 1322, being the bylaw to adopt the Airport Industrial Outline Plan.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. There is an opportunity for discussion and debate. Obviously, this is related to the same subject matter and just supports the previous amendment to the area structure plan. Is there any desire for discussion and debate on this motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries as well. That takes us to our second item of unfinished business, item 7.2, which is Bylaw 1325, Planning and Development and Engineering Fees and Charges Bylaw, and Bylaw C 1260-69, a Land Use Bylaw Amendment. Can I get a motion for third reading from a member of council? Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council give third reading to the bylaw mentioned.
To the Planning and Development and Engineering Services. Sure. Yep, no problem. We've got two bylaws or bylaw amendments, and we'll deal with the first one first.
I have it in front of me now if you want it. But
okay. No, that's fine. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. So that motion is open for discussion and debate. I don't see any council members ringing in. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton, care to make that second, the motion for third reading for the second bylaw, the land use bylaw amendment?
Yes, I would move that council have third reading of the bylaw as mentioned.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on third reading of Bylaw C 1260-69, an amendment to the land use bylaw? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I think that handles all of our items of unfinished business. We have no items under our report section, and so that'll take us right into committee business. And item 9.1, the Community Growth Committee meeting from May 16th. Councillor Clayton, I think that was yours.
You bet. Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that council accept the minutes from the May 16th meeting of Community Growth as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote to adopt that set of minutes. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton, anything you wanted to highlight from that meeting?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor Given. It was a fairly brief meeting, and I think it's pretty much straightforward in front of you, so I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. That'll take us to item 9.2, the Community Living Committee meeting, also from May 16th. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I will move that we approve the minutes for the community living meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Any errors or omissions? Again, seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant, anything to highlight from that set of minutes?
Just one item was the large-scale tourism event policy. It was a request of council to come back and just review the administrative procedures. We had some good discussion on that and decided, there wasn't any significant moves by committee to change anything, and so the committee stands as is. I think the intent, though, was that there are a number of unknowns in that as the policy goes forward and as we experience and give out the first amounts of money, that we would evaluate the program over time and seeing whether whether we're getting the results we intended to have and whether it's being we're getting the right information we need from the groups that apply.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Tarrant. I think that'll take us to 9.3, the Community Safety Committee meeting from May 23rd. Councillor Thiessen isn't here. Is there another council member that was in attendance at that Community Safety Committee meeting that could move that set of minutes for us? Thanks, Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Given. I move the council receive the minutes of the Community Safety Committee meeting held Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017, as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor O'Toole, anything you wanted to highlight on that set of minutes?
Just hold on here. I've got it all here in my little computer. And we just had a discussion on urban heads. And we're setting up a game plan on bylaws at that point in time. And what can I tell you about that? There's still some stuff that needs to be ironed out. So they're going to have a preliminary set of bylaws brought back, and we will discuss it at that point in time where the future of urban hens is. One of the discussions was other animals are in the queue. So we don't know how to handle that at this point in time with the bylaw, that kind of stuff. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Memory serves, I think the intent administration was to bring forward a bylaw amendment that would allow for licensing and could apply to more than just urban hens. They wanted to do something that would be applicable in other situations as well. Is that right?
That's correct, Mayor Given. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. And that'll take us to 9.4. And Councillor Radburn's here. We can see him right there. If you'd care to move that set of minutes for us, Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move council receive the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017, as amended. This is the amendment. If you look at 1.2, it says Mayor Given introduced this information to committee regarding the MSI program, and the rest of the that description goes this way. The government of Alberta has committed to a 2-year extension while it reviews the program to affirm outcomes. Municipalities must be persistent in seeking an open and formal consultation process where the future of provincial revenue sharing can occur. So that basically provides you a context for the motion, but also cleans up the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate, anything else we need to catch in that set of minutes?
That's it.
Let's see nothing, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. And those minutes are adopted as amended. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would now move that council approve submission to the June 15th, 2017 AUMA Mayor's Caucus, the request for direction and draft resolutions, both entitled Commitment to Formal Municipal Consultation of the Future Provincial Revenue Sharing for consideration by AUMA members as advocacy direction for the AUMA. So the little paragraph that I read that included in the minutes will give you some context. Mayor Given, if you might add just something in terms of the June 15th and where the process might go from there.
Sure, happy to, Councillor Radburn. So AUMA, as our provincial advocacy association, taking the voice and concerns of municipalities forward to the provincial government, has a couple of opportunities for municipalities to bring issues to AUMA to get them to be formal positions of the organization. One is at the fall convention that happens every year. In an election year like this year, that convention doesn't happen until November. The other opportunity is at the mayor's caucuses events, which happen a few times throughout the year, I think maybe 3 times throughout the year. So that is another opportunity for AUMA members to bring forward resolutions on issues that are pertinent to municipalities. The City of Grand Prairie has partnered with a couple of other communities, I believe St. Albert and Leduc, in drafting this resolution and these positions. And essentially the position is to that AUMA begin lobbying to ask the provincial government to start a formal consultation process around the replacement of the MSI program. The program, the government has said that they are extending it for another 2 years, which is good news, and we're thankful for that. But there is a need for AUMA to convince the government that they need to enter into a fairly robust process around that, given the importance of the MSI program to municipal governments across the province. And so that's essentially the operative part of the resolution, that AUMA encourage the government to start that process early in 2018 so that we don't end up in a situation where we're towards the end of this government's mandate and midway through the next council term, close to the expiry of MSI before we start that consultation process. So process from here on out, if council endorses this, we would join the other 2 municipalities who've also endorsed the resolution, and we'd be one of the formal, sort of the 3 formal sponsors of the resolution to help get it on the AUMA radar. Any discussion or debate? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I think this is very good. Bring forward to AUMA for a resolution. We haven't had one in a while from the city. I'm glad we're partnering up with St. Albert and Leduc. I can remember one in my first term about doubling speed fines in school zones, and I do believe it passed at AUMA. And sometimes these resolutions are taken forward and brought to law, and sometimes they sit on the shelf and dust off. I don't believe AAMDC is going to be all in favor and jumping out of the bandwagon on this, but I believe AUMA could be a very positive approach. And so I'm in favor of this. I'm sure all council is. But I also hope that before we go to, well, I'm speaking above, whoever goes to November to the AUMA, that we might have a couple more resolutions come through certain committees. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Tarrant.
Regan, just a question. Was there a concern that the province wasn't going to be sitting down with us for formal consultations? Is that?
Yeah, I think the concern really arose because it wasn't until, so as many council members will know, MSI was set to expire. And it wasn't until approximately 2 weeks ago that the government, the minister sent out a letter informing municipalities that the program had been extended. And so that cleared up a lot of confusion amongst the mid-sized cities who thought that there was a much, much tighter timeline. And I think that that's indicative of the process that we've seen around some provincial programs, but broadly speaking, provincial and federal programs. Any of the funding programs that we've seen, like the Build Canada funding programs and others, have always been very last minute in their approach from the other orders of government. And so I think the intent here is to say, look, this is so important that we need to get it done and on paper well in advance of when it expires. And I think the intent is to make sure that that this program doesn't fall into the trap, into the same process that we've seen around the changes to the MGA, for example, where the government has said that all the changes from the Municipal Government Act will come into force after the next municipal election. We understand that there are about 60 or 70 regulations that need to be written to enable that to happen, and municipalities haven't had a chance to see or comment on any more than a handful of those required regulations. And so we just want to ensure that the government recognizes that this is too important to leave till late. Thank you. Any other discussion, debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We had, was there anything else in that set of minutes? Councillor Edburn, thank you, sir.
We had one other agenda item, and that was the unaudited financial statements to March 31st, 2017. And so that was, we had a good look at them, and there are a couple of areas, 3 areas in particular, where our revenues aren't what we had expected, but our corporate leadership team is monitoring that and working on those. But still, the statement shows, I think it was about a $1.9 million surplus at year end. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. So that'll handle all of our committee business. We had no items of correspondence this evening. For delegation business, we had one that was related to the proclamation that was made here this evening. We had a couple that were related to the West Industrial Area Structure Plan, and that item was dealt with. We did have the one delegation with respect to the October 7th event at the Anavets. And so I would look for a motion related to that. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd like to move a motion forward for request to the right committee for a request of $10,000 for the Army and Navy for Memorial Afghanistan monuments.
So maybe we can just make, if it's okay, Councillor McLean, refer the request for funding to the appropriate standing committee?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
You just said it that way.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Open for discussion and debate. Councillor Tarrant.
I wonder if it would be more appropriate just to refer it to administration. Do we really need to go through the committee process? You know, we have a sponsorship program in place, and I just think that's an extra level that.
Well, just the sponsorship program, to my understanding, says that decisions over $2,000 are council decisions. And so it might be appropriate that it goes to the standing committee, which administration could bring some updates about what the sponsorship budget sits at. And then ultimately it would be a motion of council to decide to do a sponsorship if it was anything above $2,000. So the policy does specify that $2,000 sort of break point where administration can handle it underneath. Anything over is a council decision. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing nothing further, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion is carried. That item will be referred, and we'll see it at a future committee meeting. And I think that handled all of our delegation business, if I am correct. I don't think we have any notices of motion this evening, and so that'll take us to council member reports. We'll start with the local immigration partnership. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. This is my first major meeting, and I'm very proud and honored to join the strategic planning session at Ernie Radburn Pavilion. My date may not be right. I think it was May 24th, but there was a few events that day. So anyways, just to speak to this, it's going to be evolving. The city's going to be leading the role. And a couple of the things I'll speak to is about the revival of the Multicultural Association. It did dissolve, and they're actually having a few meetings already, so it's coming, it's going to be revived. And I think that's very, very important. Just to speak to a couple things is that was part of the planning session was, if you look at the census between 2006 and 2011 of immigration, where the most individual from the world came, 19% were from the Philippines, other areas in Europe, 14%, and 11% from the U.S., which I thought that might have been higher, and United Kingdom was fourth at 10% of the population. So it just shows you we are changing. And when you look at the city Grand Prairie, the growth we had is because of our diversity. I always say this over and over, your city and or your town, if it's dying or growing really old, you don't have good diversity and people wanting to come and start new businesses and work and get professionals. So to speak to a few more things, a couple things were brought up as strategic planning. As I say, this is now in the hands of staff, and they'll be reviewing this, and this will be coming out further down the line. One thing was brought up about how we did the neighborhood associations and how there's a certain amount of money evolving, and we have over 20 now neighborhood associations. Some spoke about multicultural associations and having them events, because sometimes it is a little bit of cash that gets them going and evolving. And I was very interested on this point, but it's just in the beginning stages. Other one is about participation in sports was brought up, and a percentage of getting individuals out from different countries. And if you do present it to them, if they come out, it could increase sport involvement by 45%, we do believe. But this is in its early stages, so that means that would be great for our youth. And what is working now? They're going to be looking at what's working now that's good, and actually let everybody know in the community what's good and what we can enhance on. So there was a lot more than this. There was education, there was sports, everything. And our team has this, and I think we'll be hearing more in the recent future about this. And it's very important because if you look at the city, we had a little slip in our population, but it's coming back fast. And we're growing and we're strong because of immigration. So I look forward to bringing the further report to council. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean, and appreciate hearing our first update from that organization. We'll move on to Community Futures of Grand Prairie Region. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. We haven't been meeting as per sitting in the same office in the bricks and mortar, but we've been discussing things through email the last month, just because it's the time of year where everybody seems to be gone, and we've been able to still fund some applications and top-ups, whether it's a full-fledged loan or a top-up. We've been able to do that, and so that's been going quite well. Getting quorum this time of year is a little difficult. Our next meeting is set for July, and that's where we're going to sit down into a same building and make that happen. But I did want to bring up something. Holly Sorgan's been with the Community Futures for 20 years, and that's a long time to be in an organization like that. And we'll have a little celebration here in next week. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Radburn, I think you had our next update from the Disabled Transportation Society.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a couple of highlights from our board meeting of May 18th. We received notice that the county has increased their grant from $50,000 to $75,000, which is much appreciated. We're planning a fundraising golf tournament. We're getting out there trying to sell our bus wraps. There are opportunities available, so if viewers or people are interested, give me a call. I'll get the information to you. There's $5,000, $2,000, $1,000 opportunities. And also we've gone to a new numbered ticketing method is being implemented due to a fraudulent single-use tickets circulating. So sometimes you have to react to certain things that are happening, and so we've had to do that. Thank you, Mayor Gibbon.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. And Councillor Radburn, I think you also had Nighthawk Recreation Area Board.
I do. Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I have several highlights here. 1 year in financials, we're looking positive. South Bear Paul Golf Course and RV Park is open. Our family went on the soft opening and really enjoyed ourselves. The artificial greens and tee boxes are great, and so fun was had by all, and it was quite busy, that soft opening. I didn't check about the past weekend, but summer tubing operations will begin July 8th. We're going to have summer tubing, water instead of snow down by where the winter tubing is. Annual Doug Marshall Golf Tournament is June 1st. It's a fundraiser. Downhill Bike Park is open now. A draft budget will be to the board at the AGM, which is June 21st at Nighthawk. And the LED lighting project planning is almost complete. We're ready to operationalize that using the municipal capital support. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. I think that handles all of the updates from our external agencies, boards, and commissions, and I'll look to Councillor McLean for our first council member roundtable update. Councillor McLean.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. There's a few I attended. I spoke of one, and I'll speak of two more. I might take a little thunder away from the mayor, but I'm sure he'll be speaking on this one. GP Children's Festival opening. Attended at the museum. And I do believe this will be the first of many. Since you look around City Grand Prairie, there's a lot of kids under 5 than over 65, and this keeps getting rephrased, and there's a reason for it, why we're vibrant. We're a young city. And just the reason why I'm speaking to us, there's supposed to be an open event one night, and told my kids about it, and we had a couple of events to go to, and we went there, and I thought it went from 4:30 to 8:30. We got there at 6:30, and all the performers were done and packing up and leaving, so Dad was in a little bit of trouble for 5 minutes. But anyways, hopefully next year I'll be a little bit more in tuned on the timing of the event. So sorry, Kendra and Kara. The other one I'd like to speak to is I did an event in Grand Cache, which is actually organized from within the City Grand Prairie and has a lot of sponsors, Erdy Sports, I've heard of that name before. Mountain Madness Trail Race, and there's a 2-part. They do it in Evergreen a couple weeks ago. They did 42K, 21K, 10K, 5K, so they do the same thing in Grand Cache. think they had 500 participants in Grand Prairie. They had around 200 in Grand Cache. I participated in 10 kilometers. Thank goodness I dropped from 21 to 10 because I'm here tonight and was able to be here. I had fun. It was actually a beautiful run in. I didn't have music on, smelling the pine trees, the needles, hearing the birds. Some things like that are very, very nice besides maybe being out of shape and pain. There's other good things about it as well. So there was a lot of great athletes there from Grand Prairie, Dawson Creek, Edmonton that I talked to. So I think this is only going to grow. And there's a lot of people in the city of Grand Prairie that are involved. This is the second year, and this is going to get bigger. So I take my hands off to the organization, and I think it's only going to improve. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. We're happy that you were here tonight. That means that you survived. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I have just a couple of things briefly. I'll mention one of them. Attended with a group of downtown business people, the monthly Downtown Association meeting, and at that meeting we had an opportunity to have a great update from the construction company that's doing the work downtown. There will be some better communication this year, and I think the Downtown Association and the businesses from the area will feel like the process is going to be better this year, as well as communicated better to the people that are trying to drive downtown. And it was nice information and nice to get that update. So yeah, nothing further. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Kevin. Yeah, I too was able to attend the GP Children's Festival, their inaugural year, and it was great to see the community support there, and hopefully it's a festival that continues a long time into the future. This past weekend I was able to attend the GPRC. They had a 50th anniversary celebration, and it was great to take part in the celebrations there and see hear some of the great works that they've done over their 50 years, and to hear some of the dreams about the future.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just want to highlight a couple of things. One was the Children's Festival as well. I just want to shout out to Ohm Nickel, the founder organizer, and Beth Goldie and their team. As with most projects, you have a vision, but you don't really realize the work entailed in making that vision a reality, and good on them for making it a reality for us. And I'm sure they've learned, and hopefully there'll be greater support as they move into other years. And then the other, I just want to shout out to our crime prevention department. Went to a couple of events. One was the Neighborhood Association Neighborhood Eyes program training, which is a new program that they're going to operationalize. And the other is a kind of a graffiti reduction program. A few of us went to that launch of a program too, in terms of equipment to help with reduction and positive reward system for those who are getting rid of the graffiti quickly, whether it be businesses or whatever. So I think that's an example of the proactive support that's being provided in leadership by crime prevention. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Councillor O'Toole.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor Given. I just wanted to touch on from before this last 2-week period. I went to the Northern Madden Bridge LP and ATCO ribbon cutting ceremony. And this all started, Northern Mad had a near miss situation. They're a company that goes out and puts matting down for rigs or roads so that people can get access into the wilderness. And what they did, when one of the trucks was unloading some mats, they come very close to hitting a power line. And the management and the ownership of that company said, hey, we don't ever want this ever to even come to another near miss. So they partnered up with ATCO Electric, and they built a scale replica power line system that's got early warning devices so they can train their own staff as well as others. So I just thought that was worth the initiative. At their expense, they did this, and they rent it out or they loan it out to other industry partners, and so this can never happen again, or should not never happen again. So I thought that was a very forward-thinking company, and I just wanted to give them a little bit of airtime there. Another great day for me was on the 17th. I attended and spoke on behalf of yourself, Mayor Given, the International Day Against Transphobia, Biphobia, and Homophobia. We had a social at the GPRC Later that night, during the day, there was the flag racing that was the first of its kind in Grand Prairie, and I'm sure you're going to want to talk a little bit about that. But I just wanted to let you know that it was fairly well attended, and there was some good discussion that went on that night. Also, on the 18th, I told you I had a big announcement to make, and on Big Country, I announced Municipal Government Day this year will be June 28th, with headliner Tim Hicks, Dan Davidson, and local band Range Road Ramblers will be entertaining this year. And I think that's going to be a huge success. It's going to start a little earlier, the bands, and it'll be over by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, somewhere in there. But the food isn't going to go completely all night. You have to get in there, and we'll have shut down about an hour before the concert. So you've got about an hour and a half to get your hamburgers, your hot dogs, and whatever else we've got to feed you with. Municipal Government Day, just so everybody knows, it's a day where we can promote our city, and the staff usually takes this by the horn and shows off their different parts, the different departments. And I'm not sure exactly how many departments we do got, but we do have bylaw enforcement services, we've got fire services, we've got parks and recreation, and other agencies that work with the city, and other agencies that the city supports immensely. The last one I did want to bring up was Corporal Roy Kennedy from the RCMP in Grand Prairie is taking a transfer to RCMP Training Depot. This is a big step for him. I've known him for a number of years. He's the instructor here locally for when they do their every year they've got to do a test. And so he's been taken on and going to RCMP Depot in Regina. And he leaves here, I think his last official day is the 16th of June. So I spent some time with him on Saturday night. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. So I'll try to be brief, given that it's a hot evening outside. And we'll try and get to a couple of events that there weren't any other council members at. On the 17th, I had an opportunity to head to Edmonton in support of our tri-municipal partnership between the City, the County, and the MD of Greenview. We were there to advocate with Alberta Environment for a new approach to providing some approvals with respect to development on the Crown lands to the south in our tri-municipal partnership area. And by all accounts, that meeting was helpful and helped clarify with Alberta Environment what we're hoping to do. On Friday the 19th, I had an opportunity to go back to Edmonton for the AUMA Municipal Governance Committee meeting. And on Sunday the 21st, I attended actually at the Anavet's clubhouse to speak at the opening ceremonies for their biannual provincial convention, where we welcomed representatives from Anavet's across the province to our community. And later that day, I attended at the cenotaph to lay a wreath on behalf of the city as a part of their ceremonies. There were two sort of interrelated events that I wanted to recognize. First was a farewell for a city employee. We have a number of long-term city employees, and I absolutely don't recognize them all, but maybe through this one I can do a little bit of recognition for all of them. Stephen Boyan was a 36-year veteran of the City of Grand Prairie, recently retired in our transportation department. I know him as a grader operator, but certainly I'm sure over his 36 years he did many more things than that. And I bring it up because the following day I had an opportunity to attend the corporate orientation, which was some of our newest city employees joining the organization. And it was just great to be able to contrast somebody who had a 36-year career in local government providing services to residents in our community. And I shared that perspective with the newest city recruits that were coming in to say, there are people who have given their entire careers to their community in service of making Grand Prairie a great place to live. And I just wanted to instill in them that they're part of a great organization and that they can come to work with pride every day, knowing that they're making life better for others. Another event that evening that I attended was the graduation ceremony for the Bridge Network students. There, of course, throughout the region, there are grad ceremonies going on through this time of year, but the Bridge Network is for students who have faced challenges getting to the point where they can graduate. It is in the Lions Learning Center, home of the Grand Prairie Pregnant and Parenting Teens. There are a number of participants in the Parenting Teens program there. But my congratulations and hats off to all of those students who have completed that phase of their journey in life. And on Friday the 26th in the evening, I was one of only a few thousand people down at Eastlink Center for the kickoff to the Oilers Hockey Clinic that was in Grand Prairie over the course of the weekend. It was crazy in there, and I want to thank ATCO, who was the sponsor of the event, and the Edmonton Oilers group for bringing that event to Grand Prairie. Certainly a lot of community excitement, and I'm sure when they were, an event like that must be planned a long time in advance, and so 6 months ago or whenever they were planning that event, I'm not sure we could have hoped that the Oilers would have the run that they did this winter, but there was certainly a lot of excitement at Eastlink Center as the community came out to join in that celebration. And with that, I think I will say that that's everything that I had to report, and we will call our meeting adjourned.